Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Season 3 of the Rule 34 podcast. I am Jack, joined by
Mr. Solis.
And we are back here today. The last we saw each other was WrestleMania at the beginning of April. It's about a month's time. How have you been, sir, since then?
I've been good. We are 1 month away from the end of the school year. You're very familiar with this time of year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Looming next week for my juniors. And graduation happening about 5 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Hey, last Friday I went to prom for the first time since 2017 or 16. I don't remember.
Nice.
It was a bearable experience. I'm glad I went.
Oh, man. Yeah, I can only imagine just how eventful these last few weeks are, for not only the entire school, but especially, as you mentioned, the juniors doing final testing, and then, of course, the seniors getting ready to graduate.
Yearbook is about ready to submit that thing for printing, I think, tonight.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
What's new with you, sir?
I've been doing pretty good. I'm trying to think of some of the stuff that's happened since WrestleMania, but overall I've just been doing real well. I started this. We're gonna talk about it in a future episode because basically, to give a quick explanation, one day randomly at night, a bunch of our friends in our friend group were just in a voice chat talking with one another. Mm-hmm. And we kind of had this sort of huge talk, basically about self-improvement and all that, and how how some of us kind of struggle with this whole idea where it's you talk about it with people, you talk about these are things I need to change, or even if it's just with yourself, you're these are things I need to change within myself, and then you wake up the next day and it was all for nothing in a sense.
Okay. And
ever since that, almost in a sense, all of us decided, well, why continue this pattern of, this all meaning amounting to nothing, because we were joking around in the conversation because it was late, and now we're like, man, isn't it crazy how we're going to go to bed and we're not going to care about any of this. We're going to go back to whatever we were doing on the daily. But a lot of us just kind of were like, well, why does it have to be that way? Now, one of our friends has already been working out for a while, so he's had his sort of consistent thing going. But so we all started doing these own separate things, and my thing was I started on May 2nd to kind of get myself up and around more, especially since I sit here in the house a lot on my computer, and especially when I'm doing my writing, I spend a lot of time sitting here. I decided to do this thing where I pick an album a day and I walk for however long that album is.
Hey!
And this helps me knock out two birds with one stone because it gets me up and exercising. And two, I always have a huge backlog of music that I'm I need to listen to this. So I'm starting to get through all that, and I'm listening to way more music than I was before because it's an album a day from various genres. And I've just been doing that every day.
That sounds incredible, Jack.
Yeah, that's been the main thing, and we're going to go more into detail on it in a future episode. But yeah, that's the gist of what this past week has been like for me. And other than that, since WrestleMania, I've just been doing well.
Right on. Hey, I'm going to hit you for one or both answers to these questions. What's the most recent album you listened to? And what's the best album you've listened to since May 2nd?
So today I walked to... I believe it's called I Love Life, Thank You by Mac Miller. It was an old mixtape of his from 2011, I think it was. It was about 36 minutes, so it was a good walk, nice. Good lengthy walk. I really enjoyed that one. And as far as the best album I've listened to since May 2nd, funny enough, I have the answer for what was the worst album. But
that's very fun.
The best album... man, it might have to be a tie between... So, there was... The second day, I walked to an album called... I think it was Remote by Wallows. and it was like it was sort of like an alternative album, and it very much sounded very different, and like it almost like the way it started off, I was almost like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna enjoy this album too much, but then it turned itself around, especially in its second half, and it's probably tied with the one I listened to yesterday. I can't remember what it's called, and I'm struggling. I think the guy's name is Devin Gilfillian, I believe is his name. And he just... the album is called Love You Anyways. It was a soul album, as Apple Music classified it as. And that was also a real, like... It felt like a real unique blast from the past sonically. Like, it sounded very old school to it. It was very funky and all that. And I really enjoyed that one as well.
Cool. That sounds incredible. Can I make a recommendation?
Sure.
Are you recording?
You like Limp Bizkit?
Yes.
Is that something you remember fondly?
Limp Bizkit, yeah.
Have you heard their most recent album that came out in 2021?
I have not.
Oh, it's 32 minutes, Jack. It's called Still Sucks, and it's like it's I think super self-aware. You know what I mean? By now they're older, and like it's such a good time. Where 20 years ago it was, they're full of themselves, they're obnoxious, right? This is like, it's a funny throwback. Like, I listen to it and I go, it's the Force Awakens of Limp Bizkit albums. It's like, it hits all the right beats. It does all the things you expect it to do. And for 32 minutes, it's a fun time. It's like an album that I've listened to in its entirety, right? Like, multiple times over multiple drives and runs. And I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I've been trying to be very variety, like have a good variety of genres. Because I think I've done maybe like 3 K-pop albums so far in what is now the 7-day span. And a lot of it, I always like to walk to a lot of them because like they're short. And so, because I'm someone who likes to listen to music over and over, even if it's like a 17-minute like short mini album or EP, I usually listen to it twice to get a good walk-in.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to get like a variety. So like I said, yesterday was soul, today was rap. There was alternative in there. And I've been trying to like find new rock albums to listen to. But the struggle I've been like running into is that a lot of... especially like rock artists and within that subgenre, the various subgenres of rock, I've been finding that like, though I don't dislike it a lot, I've been finding that a whole lot of them kind of almost in a sense aren't that well versed in sound mixing, because a lot of times the instrumentals will overpower the vocals, that I'm just like, it feels like I'm walking to an instrumental album a lot. And I'm just like, I don't mind it, but at the same time, I'm trying to like listen to what the songs are about a lot of times.
Absolutely.
Like there was one album I was trying to listen to and I ended up giving up halfway through because it was almost like the vocals were blending in with the instrumentals, and I was like, this isn't bad, but this isn't something I can walk to, you know?
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, Still Sucks, Limp Bizkit, 2021. 32 minutes. I think my favorite part of the album is how, again, like, hits all the things you want a Limp Bizkit album to do, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. Every song is just short enough where you go, that was stupid, that was absurd, and you're like, what a good time.
Oh, man. And speaking of good times, sir.
Yeah! What a transition!
We have our topic of today. Backlash 2023 took place on Saturday, May 6th, and it was a special one because it took place over in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, we knew from, I don't know if it was announced when this pay-per-view was announced, but we knew from pretty early on that Bad Bunny would be hosting this show.
You know, he transitioned from host to competitor.
Yeah. And, if you go back to our WrestleMania episode, you heard I can't remember. I think we did mention it on there. You heard Mr. Solis and I speculating that we assumed that Bad Bunny would be on this card because of his interaction in the Rey Mysterio Dominic Mysterio match. But
yeah, absolutely.
I didn't think it was going to be on to the level that we ended up getting with here, because if I remember correctly, I said it was going to be a tag match, because usually that's what I'm used to with celebrities.
And I've heard that I've heard that the original plan was for it to be a tag match, but people were so impressed with his progress, they thought that this was a gamble worth taking to make it 1-on-1.
Wow, and hey, the gamble paid off, but we'll get to that later on when the match comes up. But heading into this event, what were your thoughts, sir?
Heading in, it was just going to be a good time, short card. It's Saturday afternoon. I wasn't expecting too much, I don't think. There's a couple of matches that, I'm not following the weekly show, right? It's a B show, no Roman, so this wasn't one that I was looking forward to for any particular result. I was just interested in a good Saturday night in.
Yeah, definitely felt the same. There was a couple matches I was like, oh, that looks interesting, but also it's Backlash, so nothing too major is probably going to happen on this show. But we still have a good enough card, and we also had a very lively crowd down there in Puerto Rico.
Those folks showed up, and it was incredible, and you felt it the whole night, and and I love them for it. How incredible was it to hear every near fall be counted? Uno, dos, right?
Yeah, that was real fun. And I think our crowd was no better on display than in our opening contest. We have champion Bianca Belair defending against Io Sky, defending the Raw Women's Championship against Io Sky. And that crowd was lively from the start.
They heart Io. They stan Io, and they made it abundantly clear about that.
Yeah, they made it abundantly clear that the Hispanic Latino community has adopted Io into their community after this match.
And I wonder, Jack, like this match really delivered, and I wonder, is there a difference between a premium live event match and a Raw match? Because I think these two fought on a Raw, and it was a real wet blanket of a match. But this one was just all the burners are turned up.
Yeah, and me personally, I will say in rebuttal to that, that's what happens when you give Io Sky time to cook.
Time and maybe no commercial breaks to work around.
Yeah.
Because this match I don't know how much time it took, but I just wanted more, I'm just down for all of it.
Wikipedia says this match went 18 minutes.
I felt it, but it was good. I was yeah, this was a full-length match for sure. And this is, I think, the most trouble we've seen Bianca in her long, illustrious reign.
Yeah, and they definitely, especially commentary, played into the fact that, the unfamiliar territory, sort of, for Bianca, in the fact that, it wasn't that the crowd didn't like her, because I saw a lot of people trying to come up with arguments that this crowd didn't like Bianca and all that, but, they were cheering for her, especially at the start, but it was just over time, they made it abundantly clear that when it comes to these two competitors, they have a favorite, and that favorite is Io, and Bianca isn't too familiar with territories like that where they're going for her competitor more than she is, and, she was having to adapt to that.
I also heard Corey Graves do a really great sort of call where if Bianca went in thinking she was going to combat the high-flying nature of Io Sky, she had made a plan for that. What Io did was completely change her approach, and she was going for a submission-based approach. And you're you thought I was going to be flying all around? Psych, I'm going to twist you all up. Which is something Bianca also maybe didn't immediately anticipate.
Yeah, and that was especially played into of how much she was targeting the arm.
Targeting the arm doesn't stop her from pressing Io with one arm.
Yeah.
Shaking off the other because it's in pain. That was a really cool spot.
Yeah. There was a lot of close falls in this match, especially where they really, as someone who, similar to you were saying, doesn't watch the weekly shows and also isn't, I don't get too invested, especially in these, quote unquote B level pay-per-views, because I know much isn't going to happen. But even they were getting me slightly on the edge of my seat, just thinking, could they pull the trigger with EO?
Would they pull the trigger? Oh, before we started recording, I was telling you about the world of the 1990s when they pulled that trigger a lot, Jack. We're beating people on Monday and Thursday, with reckless abandon. Things are different. People are champions for longer, and it's more prestigious, and LOL, OMG, but it's frustrating to watch. But I think in the back of my mind, I kind of was hooked in. I'm like, they could, but I temper my own expectations because even though they didn't come out with Io Sky, Damage Control has got to be looming in the shadows, and they're not going to stay back there for too long.
Yeah, and they end up coming out, and an interesting story element that I saw people bringing in that I didn't notice was that if you go back to when they initially come out, it very much looks like Dakota's trying to stop Bayley from coming out, telling her not to interfere.
I got some of that as well. I don't know what she did, but that thought crossed my mind.
Yeah. And, it ends up coming to be proving true because Bayley tries to interfere a whole lot, and it ends up costing Io. But they got me again, Jack. Bayley distracts the ref. Dakota guy gets that, giant kick on Bianca, and Io goes for her moonsault. And every one of those pieces, put together, I thought, she could still win. Honest to God, they did all the right things. And how frustrating is it, Jack, to watch a multi-person group, fail to do that successfully, Use the numbers to their advantage? Yeah. But at this point, that's common with Damage Control at this point.
Oh, shots fired. Shots fired. So, Bayley involves herself a little too much. Ref calls her out on it. Bianca has enough time to recover and hit the KOD, the Kiss of Death, right?
Yes.
Damn.
And I'll say it here. If at least in this current standpoint, who knows what things will look like at the end of the year. But I definitely look at this as one of those matches that, depending on how the rest of the years go, at least in this current standpoint, it's towards the back end of the match of the year contenders,
It was good. And you know what? I was thinking of that. I was thinking of you, and I honestly thought if Io wins this, it's up there. It's super up there. But because of how they ended it, that really hampered it for me. I'm like, the ending. Literally a couple of seconds of action really shifted my perception of this match that much.
Yeah, I felt the same way where I was like, it's a good match. I won't deny him that, but, a lot of things can elevate a match, and sometimes a win for the other competitor could have easily elevated the match to that upper top 5 status area.
Goodness.
But nonetheless, still a very great match between these two.
Mm-hmm.
We move on to our second match of the night, and it's Seth Rollins facing off against Omos.
My expectations are changing, Jack, accordingly.
Very much the same, especially given the nature of how this match came to be, in it that it was just randomly announced and got very little build up to it, actually.
Did you get to see the package before the match, or did it cut to commercials?
I feel like it cut to commercials.
For me, it cut to commercials, but I heard Michael Cole say, if you are a premium subscriber to Peacock, let's find out how we got here. And then I got commercials, and I'm like, wait, am I not a premium subscriber? And is that the difference, Jack? The packages? Because I saw the package on the pre-show. But what are they doing? But anyway, a line from the package that I saw in the pre-show I really liked was Seth Rollins frustratingly just yelling at Omos going, listen, he says, I'm going to give you the best match you've had in your career, which I think we were all looking forward to.
Yeah. And what do you think, sir? Best match of Omos' career?
Yo, God, that's a good question, because I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I might have to lean towards that as well. I wasn't heavily invested in the match, given, not only just the competitors, but like I mentioned, the whole nature of it. But I still watched it, gave it a chance. Was pretty, pretty decent for what my expectations were, at least.
Yeah, like we got to see Almost go outside. This was like the most mobile he's ever been. Seth bouncing around for him. I thought the finish was actually very creative too. Yeah, like definitely I think the most impressive he's looked.
Yeah, the one thing I get away, like that I took away from this match, which I still don't know what they were chanting, but it sounded like the crowd was chanting MVP fell down at one point.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what they were chanting or they said he messed up, but like I don't know where everyone's attention was turned towards ringside and something happened with MVP.
Let's see. I'm wondering if this Bleacher Report recap that I've got open makes mention of it. No, and gosh.
I don't know what happened, but that was like the biggest like takeaway. That and when they had like that spot where Omos like countered the stomp by just like holding himself up.
That was wild. I like that. I like that in addition to the finish, where to put the big man down, he needed to hit the stomp from the top rope.
Yeah, that was a real good.
And like I think any investment I had, it was like I hope Rollins doesn't lose. The guy's had a long old year, right? And with the recent announcement of the World Heavyweight Championship tournament, a new title, you're like, the man is owed, or he's long overdue for something like this.
Yeah, most definitely. But we move on from this match to a triple threat for the United States Championship. Champion Austin Theory defending against Bobby Lashley and Bronson Reed.
Your boy.
Yeah. And I was glad for his inclusion because you mentioned earlier about, the title reigns going on forever and people holding these titles for so long. I feel like Austin Theory and Bobby Lashley have been feuding with each other just as long as some of these championship reigns have been going on.
You know what? A recap of this show I watched reminded me that Survivor Series, it was, I think, another triple threat, wasn't it? It was Bobby Lashley, Austin Theory, and who?
Let me check right now. 2022 Survivor Series. Let me get a look at the card. It was Seth Rollins and Bobby Lashley.
It felt so familiar, right? You like to see all the moves that like Bronson Reed will hit, right?
Yeah.
This felt a little rinse and repeat, a little, a little stale here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's something I definitely noticed, and I was just like, man, how long, like, is there nothing better they got for Bobby Lashley or Austin Theory in this whole reign as champion,
Well, Austin Theory is coming out smelling like roses, like, as far as the history books go, right? Like, how do we feel about him is one thing, but, like, I saw a post on Instagram that noted, like, hey, since he's held the title, he's beaten Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, John Cena, you know what I mean? Like, it rattled off, like almost, I think, 10 big old names. He did so in the most boring fashion possible, but, like, I think, like, this legacy he's created, like, it's a sleeper legacy.
But, yeah. What do you think so far about, or what were your thoughts on this match, sir?
This finish I didn't like as much as the last one, right? It's sneaky Austin Theory getting away with it again, right?
Yeah.
But moves of no... Oh! Bronson Reed running at Austin, because they were working together for a while because they're heels. But Austin Theory is like, giving him lip or something. So Bronson Reed runs towards him, right? Not a spear. He just, like, belly, like, checks him. And I think Corey goes, we've heard of people running into a brick wall, but what if the brick wall runs at you?
Oh man, yeah. And one thing though, that like my biggest takeaway from this match was Bronson Reed just pulling out some crazy moves. You
Like
know, like
what?
he had that huge. I forget what they called the slam, but he did it to Bobby Lashley on the outside, where he just like sort of jumped off the ropes and fell straight onto Bobby, and then he the ending of the match he pulled out that moonsault off the top rope out of nowhere.
Oh, he's on the apron, and he's kind of does like that, like a Vader bomb, but
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that was crazy. And then the moonsault, I didn't even know he could pull off the moonsault, honestly.
Moonsault is what Austin Theory capitalizes on, right?
Yeah, because afterwards, I think he gets hit with a spear by Lashley, and that's when Austin Theory throws him out.
That's right. He misses the moonsault. Spear by Lashley. Dastardly Austin Theory sneaks away.
Yeah. So, I don't know. This match didn't go too long. Wikipedia says it went about 6 minutes 50, so just under 7 minutes. I don't want to hate too much on the guy, but I hope they give more substance to Austin Theory.
And you know what? So I don't know if you've heard, but The Way is going to, I think, be put back together, right? Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae, Indy Hartwell, who was just drafted, and Loomis.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a lot of fun for them to but they're on different shows. Never mind. I was trying to book something here, book something interesting, but he's stuck on SmackDown being, boring. Well,
we need to see what, if they actually uphold to the draft standards, Because for all
they made they put a lot of things in place so that they will, except they've got some folks floating in between the shows, but none of them will.
Yeah. Oh, well. Yeah. I just hope they give something of substance,
Yeah, yeah.
Like, he definitely needs something that he can really... Like, a storyline that will help him not only grow, but really, show off his best feats as a competitor. But we move on from there to our second straight title match, our third title match overall of the night. Champion Rhea Ripley defending her SmackDown Women's Championship against Zelina Vega.
And our first return of the night, the line "This is my brutality" at the beginning of her song, which I think went missing, and now is back. A different voice, but I'll take it.
Yeah, and along with this, as we know, Zelina Vega is of Puerto Rican descent. So this is a bit of a homecoming, if you want to say, for her. And she comes out in Puerto Rican flag-inspired gear. She is obviously very emotional to be here in front of this crowd. And it's also, acceptable because of just how on fire this crowd is. They've been thoroughly invested tonight, and they were thoroughly invested in her, and they were cheering her on this night.
Yep, I agree. Zelina Vega came out with the Puerto Rican flag as like a cape. Very, very touching and, very fitting. I think your dad said it best, right? Before we started recording, I think a lot of us knew exactly how this was going to go. Zelina Vega, for folks that are only listening and don't watch the product, Zelina Vega weighs about 100 pounds. Rhea Ripley's about twice her size.
Funny enough, I look at Wikipedia and she does weigh 100 pounds.
100 pounds, Jack.
Yeah.
She's little, she's feisty, and, she's recently been sort of inducted into the group of the LWO, led by Rey Mysterio, the legendary underdog himself.
Yeah, and if you've been listening to these for quite some while, you'll remember back in the NXT Black and Gold days, it was basically similar to how we talked about Dakota Kai then. And anytime she had a matchup against someone like Raquel or Rhea, we were like, the way they do. Now I like how you brought up with Zelina. The difference though is that the way they book Zelina is that she at least shows this fight, and this is not to say that now they don't show that with Dakota. They've done a better job with how they showed Dakota. But if you remember back in the NXT days, Dakota was never like booked, at least like in this way, where it was shown that she could hold up. Because I don't know if you remember, but there was a time where when Rhea was feuding with Raquel, she shoved Dakota in a locker.
Yes, goodness. So like, we weren't building her up. It was just a unfortunate matter of fact. She was, she was dwarfed by all of the people she fought.
Yeah, and it's always kind of been a similar thing with Zelina as well, but they've done, like I said, they've done a better job of showing that she can overcome, such as when she beat Piper Niven in the Queen's Crown tournament finals.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And in this match, she very much was, showcasing that sort of like fight and sort of showing that like she could use her speed and size to kind of take Rhea Ripley by surprise.
Definitely her speed, for sure.
Yeah, she was getting the best of her a lot at some points. But I also liked how, like, they slowly started building up Rhea's sort of, like, frustration with all of it.
Oh, most certainly.
Like, she was getting real frustrated with how often, like, Vega was taking advantage of her. There was the funny spot at the beginning where Vega takes a chancla from her mom and throws it at Rhea.
In a YouTube video, like recap of the show, the British presenter says, she took a sandal from her mother, and the first comment to that video, and it goes, "Jack, that is a chancla."
Oh man, but like I said, I just liked how they did that sort of clash of speed versus strength, and then Ripley sort of frustrations just building throughout the match.
And when she snaps, the match is over mad quick.
Yeah, she overpowers her and then hits the Riptide for the easy win. She walks out and Vega gets her moment to just get a standing ovation from the crowd before walking off.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good showcase for Vega, but like you said, was pretty set in stone from the beginning, as we all knew.
I think so.
And from one Puerto Rican to another, or to two others, actually, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. It is our San Juan street fight. Bad Bunny facing off against Damian Priest of the Judgment Day.
How many minutes we got, Jack?
12 minutes on this episode.
Got him. Okay, do you think that's enough? Because there's a lot in this match.
I think that's enough, and that allows us to have two matches to cover on a second episode.
Copy that. I don't know if you saw the press conference, but Damian Priest and Bad Bunny, right? We're trading jabs, talking smack, and I think Damian Priest accuses Bad Bunny of wronging his family. I guess his family of the Judgment Day, and he says that Saturday night will be his punishment. Indeed, look at him referencing things.
Yeah, I definitely saw clips of the press conference, especially with the fact that people were mentioning that WWE was very much letting Bad Bunny get away with a lot of stuff simply because he was saying it in Spanish and slang. So he was getting away with a lot of stuff that he was calling Damian Priest and the Judgment Day.
I don't know much about what he was saying, but he said something, and to see Damian Priest react the way he did, I'm like, oh, what did he say? And nobody in the comments is going to tell me, but Damian Priest almost fell out of his chair. He was so mad.
Oh, man. Yeah, but so we get this. We get Damian Priest making his entrance. We get Bad Bunny making his entrance to one of his own songs that had the crowd going crazy, so much so that people were comparing it to that of a concert because the whole crowd was just singing along and welcoming him down to the ring.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about it before, but we got a backstage sort of bit in between the matches that we've reviewed. And Bad Bunny comes out to this match wielding a shopping cart full of weapons, including a very notable kendo stick adorned with the Puerto Rican flag. And who gifted him that, Jack?
Savio Vega, right?
Puerto Rico's own Savio Vega. You
Yeah.
familiar with his work?
I'm familiar with some. I want to say, uh, I think the most familiar I am with his work is that I think him and Stone Cold Steve Austin were going to have like a strap match or something like that, like on a show, and then the power went out or something
Wow.
like that, and they had to like reschedule it, and because the power went out, Mankind, who was under the ring, couldn't get notice that like the power went out, and
Wow.
so he was like waiting under there for a while. I think that's the story I remember hearing
You know what's
involving
funny? The
Savio
guy I
Vega.
work with, who went with me to Ring of Honor Supercard, he goes, Savio Vega reminded me of that guy we saw at that wrestling show. And he goes, what with the Yankee hat? I go, you know who he's referencing? The guy from Supercard in the Yankee hat?
Is he referencing Eddie Kingston?
And I'm like, bro, Savio Vega was Eddie Kingston of the late 90s. If only he could talk trash. You know what I mean? Like, but it's him. I'm like, what a one-to-one comparison.
Oh man. But yeah, we get into this match. Already had the weapons out and everything.
Yep.
And you have Priest just kind of like, toying with Bad Bunny, annoying him, because
Yep.
He's like, you basically like telling him, I'm the wrestler here. You're the musician trying to come into our world. But Bad Bunny goes to show that he can. Well, he's been properly training for all of this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the two of them start going at it. They immediately start using the weapons like the kendo stick. So much so that the kendo stick got snapped in half by Damian Priest after he was tired of being hit with it.
Well, I think, too, he was telling the crowd, I don't have to do things for your entertainment. Smash. And also, look how big and strong I am. Smash.
Yeah. Then we see him hit a South of Heaven chokeslam, but he doesn't finish it off there and there because he wants to continue.
Oh, yeah. He does have an opportunity to pin Bad Bunny 1, 2, 3, but he picks his shoulders up off the canvas because he's going to make it hurt.
Yeah. So they continue fighting. There's a point where Bad Bunny throws a chair at Damian Priest's head. Gets the hands up in time. But yeah, that's always a bit surprising for me to see spots like that because of how safe WWE is with chair headshots nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, the two of them continue going back and forth. And, they just continue fighting. And then we get a crazy spot where, it just kind of shows the dedication that a lot of these celebrities have been putting into the matches. Very much a difference from times of old. Is that Bad Bunny, global musician, I think they mentioned it a lot, like the most streamed artist in the world and all that. He's willing to take a huge, I think for Damian Priest, he calls it a broken arrow, but I think it's also like it's the Falcon arrow, I think is what they call it. Anyway, He does like the suplex into like a slam move off the equipment boxes through a table to Bad Bunny.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you now, for as long as I've been watching wrestling, you never see celebrities willing to take spots like that.
Goodness.
They'll come in for maybe a few punches and all that, or they would have come in for a few punches and all that. They were most definitely always getting the final pin. They weren't taking no huge slams off of equipment boxes through a table.
Yeah.
But yeah, the two of them continue to go at it after that. And then
at some point, we're going to jack up Damian Priest's knee, right?
Yeah.
And Bad Bunny starts working the knee to the point where Damian is like, begging him off and going as far as even apologize to Bad Bunny.
Yeah. But the two of them continue to fight. And as they're fighting, we see Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio hit the ring to, get the numbers advantage on Bad Bunny, and they start beating him down. And Rey Mysterio comes out to try and save him, but the numbers are too much still. It's 2-on-3. And who comes out?
It's all doom and gloom. Ain't nobody coming out to help them. Even though I think we expected at least the rest of the LWO to come out.
Yeah, we're expecting the rest of the LWO, but instead, we get Carlito.
What? What are you doing here?
Yeah, and I like how he comes out kind of celebrates with the crowd as they're going crazy for him returning, and then he immediately like sprints toward that ring. Like he does the celebration real quick and is like, all right, back to business, and he sprints towards that ring.
And I love his business is pull out the apple, start chewing the apple, and who does he hit with that apple spit?
Dominic Mysterio.
Dominic Mysterio gets gets a whole face full of apple. It was great.
Yeah, and they chase Balor and Mysterio off, and it looks like they're about to escape. But, sir, who do they get stopped by?
Savio Vega, the 1997 Eddie Kingston himself.
Yeah, and Savio Vega, puts the beats on Finn Balor. The rest of the LWO comes out to beat up Dominic Mysterio.
This is funny, Jack, because even though the Judgment Day are the heels, they are being wildly outnumbered here.
Yeah, they are getting the brakes beat off them by everyone. And, we get back to the ring where Bad Bunny gets a figure 4 leg lock on Damian Priest.
On that leg he's been jacking up, right?
Yeah. And then finally, to close it out, Bad Bunny starts hitting Damian Priest with the chair, and he hits a Canadian Destroyer to secure the victory.
I could not be more excited, Jack, that the Canadian Destroyer ended a match.
Yeah. Absolutely crazy affair. Had everything for everyone, basically. It had all the crazy spots. It had the returns and, pops from the crowd for Carlito and Savio Vega and everyone else. And Bad Bunny goes over in his home country. And I'll mention it here as we come to a close this episode for about 2 minutes and 50 left. The funniest thing I saw someone say about this match was, they were talking about how, Carlito came out, Savio Vega came out, like all these people coming out, that someone was like, man, they were getting me so hyped and into this match with all the returns that when they heard Viva la Raza, they thought WWE did the impossible.
Oh, why'd they have to take it there?
I started laughing when I saw that because it was just so true. Of all the returns that were happening, it was like, someone was like, I thought they did the impossible there.
Golly gee. Well, Jack, we come back with the next episode to talk about the last 2 matches. I got a big question for you that we'll answer there. Should this match have ended the night?
Oh, that's definitely a good discussion to be had. But that said, thank you for joining for this episode. Tune into part 2 where we finish off discussing the last 2 matches. And of course, whether or not this match should have main evented.